Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Let's Talk Assassin's Creed, your number one show for all things Assassin's Creed.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to episode 100. That's quite a milestone, Declan. You have churned out, 99 episodes up to this evening over the last 2 years. And, we're going to celebrate. We weren't planning an official celebration, but we're going to celebrate 100 episodes by talking about, one of my favourite assassins. But we're not alone. We've got a special guest on the show today, and that is Servalan's Flowers. Serv, say hello.
Hello, everyone.
Great to have you on the show.
Thank you for
Last
having me.
week we had no problem at all. You wrote a very interesting essay on the father figures of assassins, and that kind of sparked this whole idea in my head to make a trilogy of Unity episodes. So we had a great conversation last week with Wolfie, White Wolf Whispers, who's a community moderator over on the AC Reddit and the AC Discord and many other places as well. And we covered kind of general gameplay and the story and the setting. But this week we're going to go a bit more in depth on Arno Dorian, the poor tragic assassin. But what's most interesting, Serv, is that in this franchise of 13 games, Unity was the first one that you picked up and played. So maybe you could start by just telling us a bit about how you picked that game up and how you picked that one in the middle of the franchise and what were your thoughts on it?
That is funny and also a bit of a tragic story as well. Uh, I was aware of Assassin's Creed franchise for years, but interestingly enough, especially in the last year when we talked so much about marketing and the marketing angle of Assassin's Creed games, um, frankly, I was put off by it because it seemed to be just power walking guys with hoods. I couldn't see much depth to it at all.
Yes. Yes.
Ironic when I say it now. And then in 2019, that very tragic thing happened, the fire at Notre Dame in Paris, and I was crushed because I'd never been to see it, and it's one of the things on my bucket list. And a day or two after, Ubisoft announced that they would be giving one of the games, which is set in Paris and has the full model of Notre Dame, Assassin's Creed Unity, away for free. And I thought, okay, well, this is my chance to try, and if nothing else, if the model of Notre Dame is really that good, it will be worth it just for a bit of virtual tourism. So I installed the game and gave it a spin. Unity is a funny game to begin with because uh, it starts very oddly. It starts in 1349 with the fall of Templar Order under King Philip the Fair. So while I was vaguely aware that the franchise had two sides, Assassins versus Templars, it was being a bit thrown off the deep end because Unity's intro doesn't contain any of the usual introduction into who the assassins are, how the whole thing came to be. It also doesn't have the easing you into it through modern day like some of the other games have. There's no setting the scene. You are thrown into it immediately, and then it hops from 14th century to uh, late to 18th century Versailles until it finally starts rolling in, what was it, 1789. And luckily for me, I was aware of the history, both of the Templar Order and of the French Revolution, so I could follow, but it was fascinating because at the same time it was a story, but to me it was also a puzzle trying to figure out what was actually going on, what the story was, who the assassins were, and that added a whole other layer of charm. I was trying to unpack the whole plot of the franchise while playing the game and while avoiding any background info lest I step into a spoiler. So I know that for a lot of people, lack of MD in Unity and a lot of narrative approaches in Unity have been a bit off putting. But to me personally, it was a delight having to figure out the entire thing from what is actually a very short, very compact story. So that was my experience. And then basically after that, about 3 days later, I think I was halfway through Unity, I did a bit of Googling. So, what? Syndicate's on special, right? I'm getting this. And I'm not going to say the rest is history, but the rest is a rapid descent into the Assassin's Creed rabbit hole where I'm still comfortably sitting now, a few years later.
Very good, very good. It is. You're right. It is a very compact story. I think there's 34 individual memories that cover, if you include the prologue, many hundreds of years. But certainly Arno and Elisa's story is very compact, and they do fit a lot of history and world development and character development into very few scenes. Very little dialogue really. Um, you must have quite a unique perspective then on the franchise coming into the middle. How did it compare going back then to the earlier games? Did you find yourself missing things from Unity, or did you just enjoy each game as a sort of a unique experience?
I think I think it would be the latter. That definitely every game had its own flavor, um, and it was a lovely feeling of, again, still putting that puzzle together, because I played in a total mishmash of orders. I quite like the fact that each game has a slightly different flavor, because that kept me interesting. There's very little copy paste, uh, and here I'm talking about the story. I'm not going into game mechanics and actual game design. So it was lovely because it was a very roller coaster ride. I think that
With
I think that individual flavor of each game is was really the lifeblood of the franchise.
Yeah, I've heard like or read many times in opinion pieces that the franchise was getting stale and it was repetitive, but I never felt that. And Declan and I have discussed over the last few weeks that I've sprinted through most of the games this year. Um, I mean, yes, the only repetitive point for me is it's Assassins versus Templars, but that's the entire point of the franchise. So yeah, I'm the same as you. I never felt that Rogue repeated Black Flag or Black Flag repeated AC3 or whatever. Each game definitely has its own feeling. Um, so let's dive into a bit more. We were going to talk in this episode a bit more about Arno. I'm gonna go right into the middle of this of his story because I want to talk a bit about Belek. And I don't. One of the points we were discussing last week was I don't see any warmth or any relationship between Arno and Belek. And I know that he was his master and his mentor, and eventually Arno had to kill him. But would you say he was a father figure, tough or otherwise, or is he just a bit of a distant and rather aggressive old man?
Well, first of all, I'm going to preface it that whatever we discuss about characters is primarily, especially side characters, is primarily based on the game, and that we are sucking the marrow from the bones. We are going off effectively dozen or 2 dozen lines of dialogue.
True, very
So
true.
a lot of it is obviously filled in from personal opinions. Uh, when you look at Belek, he is he is very much that sort of gruff soldier type. I mean, the implication is that he survived the 7 Years' War and the Templars' Purge in North America, uh, which is touched on in Rogue, and that was an extremely bad and violent time. Uh, Belek's a self-admitted, self-medicating alcoholic. Prison scrambled your brains. Drink took care of that a long time ago. So uh, I don't think that Belek is a character who's predisposed to showing any warmth. And also, he is a fundy. He's the very soldierish type. We need a purge. There was a purge in Masyaf. We should do it again. So he's he's not the emotionally introspective type. So I don't think that if he is a father figure, he wouldn't necessarily be that supportive, warm father figure that everybody thinks of and wants. Uh, but on the other hand, he was deeply fond of Charles Dorian, Arno's father. And when he first encounters Arno, uh, his first thought is that this is the son of my friend. Uh,
That's a good point. I'd forgotten that bit actually. Yes, yes. I knew your father.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I knew your
Oh,
father.
then Arno immediately rejects him and says, "Bully for you,"
Yeah,
and
bully for
walks
you.
off.
And that's actually an excellent response, because by that time, Arno's father is probably kind of a distant memory for him, and
Yeah,
this dodgy, raggedy old guy who's just nicked his watch suddenly goes, I knew your father. But I think that, but on the other hand, Balek is a mentor. He is the one who gives Arno purpose. He is the one who introduces him to the assassins. He is, and even in their banter, while it's not very warm, while it's not very fatherly, it's not unfriendly. They're sort of tit for tat. One is gruff, the other is a smartass. So definitely
that's a
he's,
great point.
yeah,
They are a good foil for each other, perhaps.
they're wonderful foil, and it's also, and the actual entire scene of Balek's death. Uh, Arno's not pleased at having to kill him, and he, if anything, he's disappointed. He's trying to dissuade him. He's trying to talk him out of this idea of a purge and uh, restructuring of the Parisian bureau. Uh,
Yes, yes. Burning the whole of
yeah,
Paris.
and when he does finally, when it does finally come to the killing point, it's Balak who says, do as I taught you, kill me quickly and properly. So it's definitely, I mean, maybe a father-son relationship is stretching the metaphor, but he's definitely an influential figure in Arno's life, and he's done in those few sentences, in those few deliveries, he's done incredibly well. I mean, to me, he stands out as one of the probably best shaped side characters of the entire game.
I will have to agree there. I do think, I think when I play Unity more and I watch clips and all that, I do think Balek shouldn't be classed as a side, but an actual main character. His whole, the way he raises Arno, it actually builds Arno to be who he is. The way Arno realizes the creed as a dogma is because of Balek. Balek, in my opinion, isn't a side character. He's the main piece. Without Balek, Unity's story could fall apart. And I may be wrong, but I just feel that Balek plays such a pivotal point in developing Arno, making Arno an assassin. He doesn't create an assassin that will do everything the Brotherhood wants. It's an assassin that will happily question the Creed to make things right because he's seen how much Balek was invested in the Creed, how he believed that the Creed should be pure. It shouldn't be related to the Templars. That's not something that should happen. There should be no peace between them. I think that's kind of side Arno to be like, well, hang on, that's wrong. The Creed should be open. The Creed shouldn't be a dictatorship locked. If we are going to be free, we need to listen to Altair's ironies and be free instead of just begging for order while fighting against it.
Just thinking while you were speaking, it's kind of a shame we never did like a mission with him to see him in action, because we only see him very briefly in his memory corridor. Well, Arno doesn't really have the memory corridor, but he sees the memories of his targets, doesn't he? And we only see him just very briefly in one mission with Charles, and that's it. But it would be kind of nice to see the Master Assassin in sort of full flow doing his thing.
Yeah, I agree, that would have been great. But also to continue from what Declan said and what you asked before, James, the flavor of the game. That's one thing that Unity does to me, maybe even better than some other games, and that is explore that tension of the creed. What is it? What the creed means, and what does it mean to live by the creed? And that to me is the essential essential element of the franchise. What distinguishes it from any other stealth game? That exploration of, once you're, say we say, stuck with the creed one way or another, how do you navigate the vagaries of life, uh, and does it actually even work? And Unity is one of the games where that is very apparent, because it
Yeah.
shows a situation where everything is cracking, everything is falling apart. The Templars, the Brotherhood, France, all at the same time, which is quite a majestic stage to explore that question.
I think, can we say then that, I suppose Belek is one of the extremes. Elise is another extreme. You know, she's focused on a single thing. Belek is focused on a single task, and Arno, I guess he's the balance, or maybe he rises above it after experiencing all these tragedies. Hence his speech at the end of the story. Um,
It's the order and chaos theory that I keep discussing. And I know everyone disagrees that assassins aren't chaos and
They're
Templars
not
aren't order.
chaos.
And
No,
I
no,
do
no.
agree that they're not. I do agree that assassins and Templars don't purely represent order and chaos. But at that moment, it does show that living to the fantasy of the Creed does pave way for chaos. And living the fantasy of a pure Templar order does pave way for order. It is can be flipped. Assassins can pave way for pure order, and Templars can pave way for pure chaos. It's not a locked idea, but I do think Unity does show that the assassins can be chaos if they don't accept that the creed is flawed, and it's why I will always go back to order versus chaos with Templars and assassins, not because I agree that one faction represents the other, but it's a great way to look at the creed from both sides. Too addicted to it, you will get chaos. It's what Altair described in the Three Ironies. We beg for order, freedom, but we require servants. That is a chaotic irony. You are begging for order, but you're creating something else. I think one of the ironies is about what was it like? You promote peace, but you murder men. That's his first. That's a chaotic approach, in a sense. The opposite peace is order, murder's chaotic. It's
Well, yes, and then you get into the discussion of, do the ends justify the means? You know,
exactly.
you're trying to free men's souls through ideally targeted killings of the right targets. Not what I usually end up doing, which is in a melee in the middle of Paris, but that's my own lack of skill. Um, I've done my thing again, Declan, where I had a really good point to make and I've forgotten it. You'll have to take over.
I always do that. I always make points, and then I'm like, I've lost track. I think one of the points I've wanted to raise for quite a while, and it's about Arno specifically, is Unity, in my opinion, is the first game to re-explore Altair. And I know it sounds daft, but to me, Arno is like a French revolutionary older version of Altair. They both realise that the creed can be flawed. Altair creates the Three Ironies, and Arno creates the Dogma speech, where he realizes that you've got to carry that weight. And if you read closely at Arno's speech, you can see he actually highlights the Three Ironies. He really begs that you've got to take
He does.
consequence. So, my question is it wrong to think that Unity's whole building of story and Arno's character is just remirroring what Altair fought closer in his life? That no one's perfect. The Templars aren't perfect. The Creed isn't perfect. It's about finding your own solitude within the Creed. You've got to be yourself. You can't just take orders and ignore the consequences. You have to make sure if you're following the orders of the Brotherhood, you have to accept the consequences. You have to accept a life taken could become a martyr or could become well on your mind. You have to accept that you're not free because you have nothing's true, everything's permitted. You are locked.
I think Arno also mirrors Altair in another way, in that both of them don't follow the creed at points in their story. Altair causes the death of one assassin and unfortunately causes a very serious injury to our dear friend Malik, and of which we can probably talk another time at great length. But Arno goes off and gets the targets that he thinks he wants to take without having the proper orders. They both don't follow at times the rules that they're supposed to follow. So yeah, maybe that was a deliberate choice to try and make him match and mirror and set him up as kind of a new character in the stead of Altair.
They're also they're both mavericks, definitely. Altair will throughout most of AC1, and Arno again through most of the main story of Unity, in that they're both cocky, they're both very sure of themselves, and they do as they please. And like you said, there are consequences for that. But another aspect of the creed in Unity is that Unity, more so than any other game, shows what's happened with both the Brotherhood and the Templars over the years. So, on one hand, you have, by the time the real game starts, you have this Templar segment in France that's basically that's basically led by a half crazed sage who thinks that he's channeling the spirit of Jacques de Molay. And I wouldn't say that Germain is completely insane. He is definitely with one eye seeing the politics and the way the world is going, and on the other, he's led on this mystical quest because he's sure Jacques de Molay is speaking to him, to the point that when the king is executed, uh, he says Jacques de Molay was at Vengé, which is an old urban legend that somebody cried out, Jacques de Molay, you are avenged. At the moment
Is
of the
that really that's
yes,
a real, well, a real,
yeah,
real urban
it's
legend
a
is an
real urban
oxymoron, but you know what I
legend
mean? Is it?
from the time
Interesting.
of French Revolution. So you have these Templars that have become really and truly cult-like since the death of de la Serre, and on the other hand, you have the Parisian Brotherhood, which is reminiscent of one of those really old universities or really old kind of law firms. They're still resting on their laurels. Oh, we're the ones who took down Jacques de Molay 5.5 centuries ago, but we're the big ones. Look at our nice hideout. And also, one thing that came as a surprise to me when I played the other games is how stuck up, how ritualized the Parisian Brotherhood is. Uh,
I
uh,
have issues with the Parisian Brotherhood as well, which, hey, let's talk about it.
they wrap themselves in robes. It's the only initiation ever to sort of use hallucinogenic drugs. They speak like people from possibly 14th century. Uh, they they're bureaucratic, they're dogmatic, and they're absolutely sure that they can do no wrong. So Templars can do no wrong because they're being led by Spirit of Jacques de Molay, and the Brotherhood can do no wrong because, for God's sake, they've held Paris for 5 centuries, so obviously the way they're doing things is right. Uh, so between those two, it's not very hard for Arno to say, so this is what dogma leads to. It
Yeah.
leads to stagnation, it leads to ongoing conflict, and on a personal level, it leads to fundamentalism. And in a way, the conclusion he comes to is the one that's. Now, I can't remember which game it's from. The creed does not command us to be free, it commands us to be wise, which is again. So,
Is
his
that what
speech,
Ezio says to Sophia as
Sophia
they're
in
descending
Revelations,
into?
yes.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
so, again, is Arno's view right? That's the beautiful thing. There's no call. Every protagonist brings their own interpretation of the creed, but the
Mm.
bottom line is this is a really hard act to pull off.
This is why I like getting guests on, Declan, because I'd had inklings of what Serv's just been describing, but the more we talk about it, the more depth you realise there are to this story, and not just what they're saying, but what we see on the screen. One very tiny point I'll make is, and I didn't even realise this until I went back and replayed some of the early memories. Um, Hiding in plain sight, Mirabeau, as a member of the Third Estate and a member of the Estates General and a wealthy landowner, he's not hiding in plain sight. Not at all. It's terrible. They have this massive cafe theatre. And he's taking a key part in French politics. That's that he's forgotten the creed a long time ago, in my simplistic view. Anyway, Declan, you wanted to make a point as well.
I just want to say there's another story beat that seems to be slightly overlooked from a lot of fans who've played Unity because it's kind of one that you'd have to play the game, stop for a while, go play AC3, stop for a while, then think about it. And that is Haytham and Connor argued that assassins and Templars could work together. Haytham was brought up an assassin turned Templar, But he always, especially in Forsaken, believed that deep down, assassins and Templars weren't truly opposite. They could work together, and it's unique to see that no game opposite Unity ever tries to argue that maybe peace between them two could work. If you took out Balek killing Elise, you would actually, well, Elise's death, you'd realize that technically, if they ended with Templars and Assassins having some sort of peace, it would be the first time that Haytham and Connor's speech was correct. And it's a detail that I didn't really realise till I read Forsaken and kind of realised Haytham was right. There is nothing stopping Assassins from working with Templars. Elise and Arno did it through love, which is a very Romeo and Juliet type story, which is why I think I'm addicted to Unity, because it's one of my favourite Shakespearean plays. But it's kind of cute to realise that the love between them two was able to bridge a centuries old feud over nothing. Really, the fight between Assassins and Templars is pretty over nothing half the time. I'm sure they could work stuff out if they tried. So it just kind of makes me ask that, are Assassins and Templars kind of destined to never work together?
I'm actually going to do something very rude. I'm going to slightly disagree with what Declan just said when you said that the relationship between
This, just to say, this is not rude. This is exactly how it should be.
yeah
You
Arno
carry on.
that relationship between Arno and Elise bridges the gap between Assassins and Templars. I don't think it does, because there's nothing in their relationship that makes either Elise question Templar principles. And frankly, the reason that Arno joins the Assassins is not because of his family history or because of his admiration of the Creed. He joins it to be able to protect Elise. So there's nothing in their relationship that actually bridges that, because Arno would throw the whole shebang out the window in a heartbeat for Elise. And
Which he does, doesn't he? With the execution of Louis XVI. Yeah, he
pretty,
sort of
no, pretty much.
holds his hand. Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much. And Elise, on the other hand, in the novel and in the game, uh, never questions her allegiance to Templars. She knows that what Germaine is doing is wrong. She sees the order going in a way that she doesn't want it to go, but at no point does Elise say, "We're going to avenge my father, and that's it. I'm done with this Templar shtick. Let's leave them both behind." And this was a lovely point that Dan Janot, um, Arno's voice actor, made an interview with Luma years ago when they asked him how he saw Elise as a character, and he said that the way he got his head around it, he thought that being brought up a Templar is a bit like being brought up in a cult. Uh, so while I think the unity between Arno and Elise would require leaving both Templars and Assassins behind. But on the other
Yes.
hand, um, that first dialogue, only dialogue between De la Serre and Mirabeau, so respectively Templar Grandmaster and the mentor of Parisian assassins, when they look at each other, say, "A truce?" All right, a truce. Uh, that is actually an amazing point of unity, because both of them agree that the country of France is in such a terrible state and things could go so badly wrong that it's time for both of them to put the eternal war to the side and focus on getting the revolution carried out with least loss of life and with least disturbance. And at that moment of unity, things are broken by Germain. And that is why also the logo for the game is so fantastic, because you start the game at the point at which Templars and Assassins actually call a truce. But it's people on both sides, like Germain on the Templar side and Belek on the Assassin side, that don't want to see it. So
Germain is
the
willing to
attempted
to
unity,
prolong the revolution, isn't he? Just to cement his own position and
yes,
secure his control.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the attempted unity is doomed not because of the clashing philosophies, but because people are being people.
So would it be then right to argue, just looking at Unity's story and Arno's character development and everything, that really there is nothing stopping assassins and Templars working together other than human nature. There's nothing hugely philosophical or hugely argumentative that is stopping them from ever just saying, let's work together to solve one crisis or something. It's just purely human nature at times. That sometimes one may think they're better than the other. One may
Mhm.
not like someone who's in the Templar Order, so goes on a fantasy rage like, I don't like you, so I'm not gonna like all the Templars, and vice versa.
It could be that, but there's also, I mean, first we have instances of assassins and Templars working together, starting with Connor and Hatham pairing up for a bit, and then later in some of the transmedia, Otto Berg throwing it together with the assassins in the attempt to destroy Juno. But there's, I think that, I mean, personality would probably play a part when you have very strong, larger than life personalities, which is normal infection. But there's also a huge difference in the approach. Traditionally, assassins side with the marginalized, with the gray areas of society. Uh, Whereas Templars, again, traditionally seek to alter the world from places of power. Uh, Haytham gets involved in high politics in North America from the moment he sets foot in Boston. Um, Templars in the Ezio trilogy are all deeply part of the hierarchy of Italy and then later on Ottoman Empire. So I think there's also that there's this big um, um, clash of values between assassins and Templars that uh, rather than order and chaos, uh, I would I would compare it to oligarchy versus anarchy. Templars believe in kind of Plato Republic style oligarchy, the rule of the best, the smartest, and so on. Assassins believe in anarchy, and anarchy doesn't mean chaos. Anarchy means lack of hierarchy. And that clash, that's very hard to put together. Now, skipping to the modern day, through which we view all of this, is you have the fact that the sides have been taken because Templars represent the current um, structures of power. They are a corporation, they do intelligence, they do surveillance, they are the bad guys of our world, whereas assassins are presented as these extremely geeky yet athletic people running, under the system, fighting for the
Plucky
marginalized,
underdogs.
the under, yeah, the techie
Yeah.
underdogs with, hidden tasers nowadays, and that clash of values. Don't. I think it can episodically work. Like there is this one instance where we can work together happily for a common goal, but overall, I don't think it would work, and I don't think it should work because again it's the lifeblood of the franchise, that conflict and things that come out of it.
Can I just pose an off tangent question?
That's what this show's about, pretty much. The script is really just, it's a guideline. We can throw it
We're
out.
not script. I quick want to say that I am no longer going to look at the Assassins without looking at Assassins Call them Anarchy. That is the best. I'm loving it. I love that Anarchy type punk rock from the 80s, but hey, that's someone else. My off tangent question is, it's a fan theory. It's stupid. It's wild. But Assassins and Templars uniting to reignite the 10-year human vs. Isu feud. I've always had a theory that with Basim coming back from the dead, essentially, in Valhalla, if all Isu tried to come back to life through sages or whatever, would it be more sensible for the Assassins and Templars to drop their feud and start a civil war against the sages? Because technically, Templars' surveillance and Assassin's skill in stealth and assassination would make the best counter-attactive to an Isu Sage revolution. Kind of off tangent question, I know.
I agree, and I actually think that may be where one of the storylines is headed. That the conflict shifts from the conflict between assassins and Templars to the conflict between humans and Isu, because when you think about it, the origin of assassins is the conflict, both conflict and unity of humans and Isus, because the first assassins are all descendants of Isu human hybrids. And I think that's quite a logical story. I, for one, would not like to see it because that then delves into sci-fi far more and takes the history and takes the human aspect out of it. But having said that, it's not the story, it's how it's told. So that could be quite interesting. And I will also add that anything that adds more Besim Ibn Ishaq content is always welcome in this house.
I believe he's a very popular character worldwide. um, I am going to move the conversation on. I want to ask you both a question, but Serv, you're our guest. You go first. Arno's mother disappeared or left the family or died. We don't really know, do we, exactly what happened to her when he was very, very young. Charles, his father, is assassinated when Arno is 8 years old. And then I don't actually know if he was formally adopted, but let's call him his adopted father, Monsieur de la Serre, is killed when Arno was a young man. Does Arno have the most tragic life of all of the protagonists, do you think?
Well, the competition is fierce for the
It
most
is.
for the most tragic protagonist. And just for a brief comparison, um, it's pretty hard um, when you look at Ezio Auditore, who loses most of his family and then later loses his other supportive figure, his uncle, and along the way loses most of his friends either to assassinations or to war. And I would say that it's impossible to beat for tragic. It's impossible to beat Ratonageden, Connor Kenway, because Connor loses first his mother in front of his very eyes. Not a mother that disappeared when he was a baby, but a mother that raised him and loved him and that he loved enormously. He kills his own father, not without regret. And then at the end, he loses, and this is unfortunately historical fact, he loses his land, his people lose their land, uh, their identity begins to either dissolve or is ghettoized. So I would say that no, Arno did not have it the worst. He certainly didn't have it very nice, but I would not say that he's the most tragic by any stretch.
Declan, any thoughts?
Um, I would agree 100% with Serv. I was going to mention Connor as well because his whole historically, what he would have to go through as well would have been very rough for him because I know during that time there was a lot of tension between the natives and the people who came to live in America. So, um, I do think that caused tension, but my personal one isn't related to the games or their story, but Haytham because technically Haytham has such a tragic life. His dad dies, Edward Kenway. He's then
True.
dragged
True.
away to live a Templar life. He's then led to believe his sister's gone and missing. He doesn't know anything, and the Templars are supposed to fix that, but they don't. They've been hiding it for secret for years. So then he's
Yeah, Reginald does not treat him well,
no.
does he? There's an awful lot of psychological
Um,
stuff going on there.
and when you read through Forsaken, what he saw as a Templar, especially with some of the Templars who took war too seriously, I kind of feel more bad for Haytham. He led a life where he didn't know who his dad really was, and his dad was killed. He was dragged through the mud for the Templars and saw the most aggressive side to the Templars he could. I think in the novel Forsaken, he mentions one of them beat women and children after war, which is not what the order was about. They shouldn't be doing that. So he's gone from being trained to be an assassin with his dad to groomed as a Templar to then seeing how dark the Templars are to then finding his sister to then losing his sister because he goes to America to find someone he loves, to get dragged away from the one he loves, and then to get murdered by his son. His his life was just awful. He's a fantastic character, and I would say his is slightly worse, not on the story, but the basis that Assassin's Creed 3 gave us about an hour and a half of Haytham and the rest of Connor, but they locked the greatest story for Haytham in a book. And that's why I would say it's more
That
tragic.
the story in Forsaken is fantastic. It really is. That could
It's
be a Netflix miniseries of adventure and heartache and all the rest of it. Um, this is a really depressing franchise. I don't know. I think I might find another franchise. all of these people have such sad lives. Arno. I'm afraid I've got a special place in my heart for Arno. You are right. There are others that have probably suffered more, but I'm going to read something that this is from the Abstergo Handbook, and it's written by the researcher Robert Fraser, the first one to relive Arno's memories, and it's in one of the notes that survives in the book. And he just says, if Arno didn't have bad luck, he would have no luck at all. And that does feel like quite a good summary of the poor guy's life. And there's other little hints, like in his letters to his father. In particular, the one he writes after he's assassinated Loadatun. And he really anguishes over having to assassinate this person, who is not a pleasant person. This is a person who chops people's legs off so that they earn more money from begging. And in particular, he hates the fact that he has to hold his blade and hold himself back, and that he can't intervene at that very moment. It's the moment when the Marquis de Sade arrives on the scene and says, "Don't do it right now. You're not going to win." And the Marquis is correct, but he really anguishes over the role he's been given, and he can't. In that letter, you haven't read the book, have you, Declan? Have you read it, Serv?
Sorry, which book?
The Abstergo Handbook.
I have read all of Arno's letters.
Understood. So, yeah, he really does. He carries so much. The weight he carries on his shoulders feels unbearable, and you see it in his letters, and you see it as he beats himself up and drinks himself into a drunken stupor. Is it twice we see it in the game? That's for certain. And the burden he places on himself, and you see it sort of hinted at in the novelization, where mostly the novelization is Elise's journal, but there are certain chapters that are Arno's journal, and there's a section at the end where he kind of meets Hélène and Jacques. But the burden he places on himself is just, it feels to me, when I was playing it, this guy needs a break. He just as it says, he doesn't have bad luck, he has no luck at all, and nothing goes right for him, and he gets a few little glimmers, he gets a few months. Well, okay, if we actually look at the timeline, it's maybe a year or so with a little bit of happiness, and then it's sadness again, and I just can't help but feel bad for the guy. Declan, go ahead, mate.
I just want to say, can you send me a picture of this book? Because I need to find it. I'm literally on such a manhunt for transmedia. I need to find it because I love Arno's story and I do feel so bad for him. But hearing you look at the letters and the Abstergo Handbook, I feel like the depth of the character is in the transmedia, and I need to find it. Because
The book and the novel, I would say that for people that are listening, I mean, the book, I don't know how easy it is to find. I brought it from a UK online bookshop, not Amazon. I assume it's available secondhand or whatever. But the Abstergo Handbook, the novel, and the game, I feel like you need those three to build a complete picture of Arno and a complete picture of Elise. And the Abstergo Handbook in particular, there's a story within the story, if you like, within the book. So yes, it's got all the little pieces of media like research notes, and it's got what are supposed to be the copies of the original letters from Lafreniere to Monsieur de la Serre and all the rest of it. But it also tells the story of the researcher, Robert Graves, who is reliving Arno's memories the first time. And actually, as you get towards the end of the book, it tells the story of Robert Fraser. Sorry, Robert Fraser. Don't be wrong on the internet. And he falls in love with Elise. And I won't spoil what happens at the end, but this book, which is kind of an in-universe encyclopedia sort of thing, it's tragic as well. There's a lot of tragedy in it. Anyway, Serv, you wanted to make a point.
I just wanted to add to the list of obligatory reading, viewing, and listening. And if you like, you can put a link in later. Uh, Dan Janot's interview with Luma in Assassin's Den, because that offers some maybe non-canonical, but very, very good insights into Arno's character and how Dan wrapped his head around that, and how he saw some aspects of Arno and why they're there. Is he true? And it's good to remember that transmedia comes later, but what the actors glean from what is essentially a very short script, that all comes into the character in a great way. And that one's, thanks to Luma's generosity, available for free.
That's a great tip. I will definitely. I haven't watched that. I've watched a few of Dan Janot's interviews, and he's done some let's plays of Unity where he's also commentated on the character and some of his work. But that's really interesting. I will definitely look that up. Declan, I shall send you a link to the Abstergo handbook. Maybe put it on your Christmas list.
Oh, it's definitely got. I'm literally hunting on transmedia. I live off the essential guide, which is what I'm currently referring to for this episode. For a lot of my Arno facts.
All good. All good. Well, I tell you what. Hit us with another Arno fact.
Oh, do I have to open the book again?
You have to. Oh, I've put you on the spot now.
Oh,
You've
it's
got your
fine.
bookmark. You're not ready.
The only thing,
We'll edit all this bit out. It's going to be totally seamless. Don't worry.
the only main thing I know on the book, because it's just got a huge page on Arno, is it says that he travelled with Assassin's father after the departure of his mother, who left upon discovering her husband's assassin activity, and then he found his body after Charles Dorian had been assassinated in Versailles. And that actually links to one of the biggest pet peeves I have in Unity.
Go ahead.
I absolutely despise, and I will say despise because it actually upsets me, that the games like Assassin's Creed 3 had that really wonderful video of describing what was happening, and then it leads into Assassin's Creed 3. But because of Unity being PS4 and Rogue being PS3, if you don't play Rogue, you don't know who assassinates Arnold's father because they don't show it. He's just assassinated. And I have a friend, and I've mentioned this in the past, who played Unity, and his biggest question always was, who assassinated Arnold's father? Why don't they tell us it? Why don't they answer it? And I'm like, because you have to go by Rogue. Play Rogue, then you'll understand. And they've all come back to me and said, why wasn't that in the game? Why wasn't that a cinematic, Or even as you pan the camera out, you see Shay walking away. That would have just been a great nod. Because it's still, if you don't play Rogue, you'll never know who assassinates Anna's father.
I
Which,
think. Sorry to cut.
sorry, go on.
I think in a way, I understand why we're upset, and I had that jaw drop by looking up things about Rogue before having played it. Oh, it was him, right? And I thought it was a neat tie-in. Now, of course, production schedules, this and that. There could be any number making people buy Rogue for that little extra bit of Unity lore. That could have all been on the table. But I actually, now that you mention it, I think that narratively, it's good that you don't know, for two reasons. One, that would focus the whole story on the person who killed Charles Dorian, and the story is not about that. And um, otherwise, if Shay shows up for a moment and just walks away, you'd spend the whole game wondering, "Hey, am I going to run into that guy?" And you wouldn't. And the other is that again, the irony of it. Uh, what Arno experiences as a kid is actually what assassins do. And you can very easily imagine a slightly different story where it's Elise de la Serre, as a small child, standing over the body of her father who'd just been assassinated by someone from the Brotherhood. So,
That's
That's
quite a mind-bending point. Yes, the assassins may only kill the required target, but those required targets leave people behind. How many martyrs do the assassins make as they slice their way through Templars and whoever else? It's a good point.
that is actually a point I never looked at, and I'm actually grateful for that point because I did play Rogue and then Unity, and I saw Shay kill his father, and it tied in. I thought, wow, this is such a fantastical tie-in. And I played the entire Unity, and I wasn't bothered about Shay because it just wasn't in my mind. I just knew that as he walked away, we'll never see him again. But
Quick question for you though, Declan. Did you play Rogue first and then Unity?
I did, yeah, because I didn't have a PS4 till 2017, so
Right.
the first game I got for PS4 was Unity. So Rogue was fresh in my mind. So seeing him leave and then play Unity, it was one of the greatest story jumps ever, in my opinion. It was so fantastic, and I always had this wondering, like, well, now Shay's gone, he's left behind destruction. This kid's life is ruined. He's lost his father, his mother's gone, and this kid's left to pick up his pieces. It's like Haytham all over again. The Templars kill Edward, and Haytham's left to pick up the pieces. But I think just hearing from a friend who got new into the franchise, who played Unity, and his biggest question for entire Unity was, who killed Arno's dad? I kind of do have this kind of sense that for some people that may have been an annoyance when they got to the end of the game. They've loved the game, they've played it, they loved Arno's character, but they may still have always had that question of, but who killed Arno's dad? Why wasn't there an answer to it? So I think
Well,
there's two sides to it.
there is another aspect to it. I mean, from the novel and from the game, we glean that Arno lived his life with de la Serres blissfully unaware of either assassins or Templars, because that was something that was always kept from him, partially at Elise's insistence. And you may have to wonder if he'd overheard, or if passes sneaks through the kitchen to steal some more jam, and hears de la Serres say, yes, but ever since that Irish Templar killed Charles Dorian. Wait, what? Your people killed my dad? Would that have impacted on Arno's future, despite his attachment to de la Serre and love of Elise? Wait, you guys killed my dad? Right. Would you have been able to gloss over that or not?
I can agree with that. I think it would have dramatically changed Arno's character. It may have been a different approach. I mean, just a part of me thinks logically that how of a network assassins are, they would know who killed Arno's dad. And I think for me, I always expected playing Arno and playing the game that he was looking for answers. That's why he joined them. He wanted to avenge his father at first because he took that potion, which is weird in my opinion still.
It
And
was mushrooms.
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 And I think for me, I love his story. I think it's one of the best in my opinion. But I always did have that little niggle in the back of my mind, like what really happened to his dad. Why don't we know? Even though I know from playing Unity, Rogue, you still have that little, why don't we know what happens? And I do agree from Arno's, point of view, it may have drastically changed his character. He may not have been so, what's the word, willing to work with Elise and the Templars. He may not have been like, you know what, I know what he's like. He's used your own people's pawns. You've killed my dad. So I do think there is a side you mentioned, Sav, that I never realized. It would have drastically changed Arno's character for the worst. Having a character like Arno who's unaware of anything. He's an insider. He's just coming from the outside. He's doing it for his own goals. Is kind of the best approach for Arno.
And that's something I like about the franchise that comes through again and again, the futility of vengeance. Because from the start, it's maybe not that big in AC1, because the character doesn't come preloaded with family trauma in the game. But starting with Ezio Trilogy, uh, everybody seeks vengeance to eventually find it absolutely pointless. And that's the point which Anno reaches in the end, while he links it to the Creed, is that the whole chase for vengeance, Belec's chase for vengeance against the Templars Elise's chase for vengeance against Germain, in the end actually brings nothing. It just brings more loss. And something similar to when Ezio says to the Pope, of course, I'm done. This is not going to bring my family back. I'm not going to keep rolling on this constant quest. And something that Connor also, in the end, he promises Charles Lee that he would find him. When he does find him, uh, he's he's gone past vengeance. He knows that things have been irretrievably lost. When he kills Charles Lee, he kills him because Charles Lee is a Templar and that has to be done. There's no, there's even, he's even gone past any personal satisfaction. And so I know a lot of fandoms always talk like, oh, it would be really great to have a game where Arno meets Shay or where Arno hunts down Shay. But I honestly think that Arno, as he is at the end of, especially at the end of Dead Kings, I don't think Arno would bother. I think because that vengeance fixes nothing, and that's a major point of Unity.
That's something I was thinking as you've been talking and Declan's been talking over the last half hour or so. If there was ever to be, and there's plenty of fan fiction and other media to read about Arno's later life, some of which I'm reading at the moment, and it's fantastic. But if there was to be an official kind of next story for Arno, I do wonder, would he just walk away? Would he be a man of peace? Because he's seen the extremes. He knows as you described, Serv, he knows the revenge solves nothing and it just prolongs the pain. And would he just sort of hang up his robes, metaphorically or literally, and walk away? I know we see him in his robes at the end, and it's kind of left a little ambiguous, but it's also kind of hinted that maybe he's still an active member of the Brotherhood. We said it last week when we were speaking with Wolfie. Actually, did we? I can't remember. If we didn't say it, I'm about to say it now. I quite like the idea of him being a rogue and just doing his own thing and being kind of totally independent of both sides and just righting wrongs and, bringing justice in his
Funny
own
you
way.
should say that. Funny you should say that, because when they asked Dan Janot that very same thing, he said that he could see Arno going, a plague on both your houses, especially for
Interesting.
Declan, since he likes
Me and Dan,
Romeo
we're just
and Juliet. And one of the things that he mentioned off the top of his head is Arno heading off to South America to be a sellsword or support the wars of independence there, which will come in later in the 19th century. And I thought, oh god, now that would be a rollicking good game.
That would be amazing. Yes.
To be fair, just a quick point. I could actually agree that I could see Arno creating this idea of, I know how much fantasy the assassins and Templars could get, so why don't I just be the middleman? If an assassin's gone too far, I will stop them. If the Templars are going too far, I will stop them. I won't rely on the Brotherhood, because no matter how much you create a Brotherhood, they will always lead to phantasm. The Creed brings dogma. I know this, so why don't I go rogue? Why don't I become Justice? I will kill Templars
Can't
and
say go
assassins.
rogue. That just hurts.
Sorry, you just broke it.
Yeah.
You just broke it.
Assassin's Creed Rogue 2, Arno's life. That's it. Confirmed.
Yes.
Done.
There we go. Sorted it.
Excuse me. I got a bit of a cough going on. That's not great for recording, is it? I have to keep mashing the mute button. I wanted to ask a slightly different question about Arno. We've talked about Charles, and we only see Charles for 10 seconds, 20 seconds on screen, and he only has a few words. But it seems like, to me, to contrast with Belek, who, to be fair, you've kind of convinced me that he's not just a grumpy old man, so my opinions are changing. But with Charles, we only see him very briefly, but he's holding his hand. He talks so nicely to him, and he promises to take him to the fireworks after. It's just lovely. And he bends down on his knee and he talks to his son at his height, just the way you would with a child. And it's, again, very, very short scene, but there seems to be proper warmth and so on there. But I wonder about mother figures. We know that he's never really had a mother figure in his life. His own birth mother disappeared at a very young age. And then Elise's mother, Julie de la Serre, she dies within, I'm trying to think of the dates, but I think it's within a few years of him joining the de la Serre family. It may even be within a year. I can't remember the exact dates, but he doesn't ever really have a mother figure in his life. Elise is his kind of older adoptive sister. And I wonder what impact that has in his life as well. I mean, kind of a broken, he's come from a number of broken families, unfortunately. What do you think, Serv?
Well, this may be an indictment of the entire franchise, but traditionally, Assassin's Creed is extremely short on mothers and mother
Yeah,
figures. Uh,
yeah,
and recently, we've had in the community a lot of talk of why that is. And I'm sure we'll be talking about it for the years to come. Uh, but no one, no one really has a mother figure at hand when they need it the most. Ezio doesn't, because his mother goes practically catatonic after the murder of her husband and two sons. Canezio is taken away from Connor. Um, uh, none of them have none of the protagonist. Fry twins. Mother dies in childbirth. Altair's mother dies in childbirth. So, you could extrapolate that these are all people who have been um, somehow deprived of motherly love. Okay, maybe not Ezio. He grew up to the age of 17 with a loving, attentive mother with whom he had an excellent relationship. With Arno, uh, that's a bit tricky. I would say that there's a bit of dissonance there. But on the other hand, he would have operated in those days in a very male-dominated world anyway. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure how much a mother figure would have changed things there. I mean, he obviously grew up to have a reasonably healthy relationship first with his sister, adoptive sister, and then later on a perfectly respectful, good relationship with Elise as his lover. Um, and when you see his interactions with women in the game, they don't come off as particularly gauche. Or anything like that, even if you want to point out, he's very even-handed. He assassinates a woman, no problem. Same as he assassinates guys, no problem. Um, but the thing is, though, I also think that historically, mothers dying early was not an uncommon thing. The interesting thing to me about Arno's mother is all the silences that surround her. And obviously, Charles tried his best to be a loving father. And yes, that scene does convey it very well. He gives, his most prized possession. Here's my pocket watch, hold on to it. Um, and he obviously shielded Arno from less savory aspects of his work, uh, while being perfectly aware of it. We see from his encounter with Shay that in a split second, Charles knows that he's going to die. He knows what's happening. Um, but the whole thing about Arno's mother leaving, they say she left because she couldn't put up with Charles's line of work. Uh, what I wondered is, the first initial reaction is, oh my God, she left her child. But back in those days, can you see a woman from a sort of middle class family going to family court and suing for getting guardianship of the kid because her husband's a politically motivated murderer? Not really. So what I suspect is that Anna would have grown up like most of the kids whose mothers unfortunately died from illness, in childbirth, and just being told mummy is in heaven now, as he says in one of those letters, which means that basically um, his father lied. But missing mothers in those days, considering the state of lives and what women's health medicine looked like, I don't think that would have been. He would have met many, many people in a similar situation.
Just realised my mic wasn't on then. It's because I got a damn cold. I'm trying to stop myself from sneezing. On about mother figures, I wanted to quickly add Haythorn's mum from Forsaken, because that's an interesting one that she adored Haytham. She loved him to pieces. He was her most favourite child by the looks of things, Forsaken. But as soon as he kills a man to protect her, she shuns him, she locks herself in her way, she goes insane and pushes him away. And I think it's kind of an interesting story that she goes from loving him to pushing him away when he kills another man for defending her. So it's kind of unique. I just want to keep bring up that in the essential guide, it does say that Arnold's mother apparently left them because she found out that Arnold's dad was an assassin. And I'm wondering if she did that because she may have had a fear that no matter what she said as a mother, no matter what she did, that he was going to be trained as an assassin anyways. That she didn't want to be a part of watching her son be trained to be a killer. Maybe she wanted Arnold just to have a simple life, shoemaker, shopmaker, anything. She didn't want him to be a killer. And when she found out that Charles Dorian was a killer, even though he was doing good things, maybe she thought, I can't be a part of this. I can't watch my only child become a killer. This is not what I want for him. This is not what he's intended his life is supposed to be. So, as Sarah said, it might have been easy for his dad to lie and cover it up.
Yeah, that would have because what power would Marie have had to stop it? And to be frank, assassins do have a long, long history of indoctrinating their own kids into the order, which is of course beautiful for story purposes. But when you look at it, you think, okay, you guys are. Yeah, I mean, when you look at and one of the poster children for the whole thing, Desmond, is spending his life trying to shed that enforced assassin heritage. Might add something what you mentioned about Hatham's mother, and partially refers to Elise's mum as well. Uh, and I apologize if this hurts anyone's feelings. My problem with a lot of background stories and books of Assassin's Creed is that sometimes very ham-fisted approach to trauma. Uh, so, let's throw in everything and the kitchen sink just to show how the characters got broken. Uh, and sometimes it feels forced, which is a pity because in the games you get enough indication in the dialogue, in the way characters behave, and it's sometimes nice to have that uh, gray. Gray area rather than pushing trauma almost to the point of illogicality. I mean, why did Reginald Birch sell Kenway's daughter into slavery in the Ottoman Empire? He could have just killed her. I mean, it's a bit like, oh, he was such an evil man. Yeah, okay, but and the same thing with the Unity story. You have to somehow rather than just motivating Elise's grief and drive by the fact that she had a lovely mother who educated her, who raised her to think for herself, who genuinely loved her. Oh, no, 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 we have to have a murder attempt as well because otherwise readers won't get it. So I tend to very often in my thinking kind of skip over those bits as they very often feel a bit tacked on. But then again, still canon.
I am going to agree with you there. Like, I love books. I've read hundreds of books over the years, and reading Forsaken and seeing what happened to Edward Kenway, I was like, that's enough trauma for Haytham. That's enough. His life is rough. And then suddenly, oh yeah, now my mom's shunning me because I killed a guy to protect her. I was like, do you really need that? Really? As a parent myself, if my child killed a man to protect me, I'm not gonna shun him. I'm gonna be
No,
a bit
you're
like
gonna take them to McD's and order what they want.
exactly. I mean, I'll be slightly
Why not?
terrified.
Other fast food restaurants are available, of course.
Exactly. I'll be slightly terrified that he knows his way around these weapons, so I best tread on my toes carefully. But I'll be thanking my lucky stars that someone's there to make sure I'm alive. I'll be grateful that I'm seeing another day. I'm like, hey, thanks for killing the man. I'm scared of you, but I'm glad I'm alive. But if you want a toy for Christmas, I'll buy you it. Just keep you away from the kitchen knives.
That's kind of why, and we discussed this last week, and it's so I won't sort of rehash the whole thing. But this, what you've said there, Serv, is kind of why when Elise dies at the end, I just feel a little bit like, oh, for God's sakes. I know it's consistent with her character and her focus on revenge. Absolutely can't fault that kind of consistency. Although it might have been interesting if she had grown a little as a character. And I guess we'll come more to Elise next week with our next guest. But I just felt like, oh, my man Arno, he just needs a little bit of happiness. And they just had to give him one extra kick, when he's down. He's just beaten the bad guy. And but don't worry, here's another kick just to make sure he's really, really suffering. And you just think, yeah, he suffered enough. I don't think it was needed. I do. I've spoken, I think, in the past about. I do respect the ending of the game, and I like the kind of the cold ending where he's in the vault with Napoleon at a certain date, which isn't clarified in the game, but it is in the wiki. So I assume there must be a source for it somewhere. And then that's it, and we don't know the future, and we don't know exactly what he did. But yeah, it was just that there's too much sometimes piling on of the misery to these poor characters. I know he's not real, but I still wish he had a bit of a nicer life.
I think everyone's coming down with a cold today. That's
I've got a little bit of a tickle, yeah, and it's kind of frustrating.
Sneeze part 2. See, 1st of October, people, we're all falling ill. It's spooky season. We're all getting ill. So,
Speak for yourself. It's springtime here.
Can we swap? Britain's like cold. I want it to be spring.
No, it's still cold.
I want to raise a weird question if anyone's up for weird questions.
Definitely.
Always.
Oh, yes. I'm always happy when people want weird questions. Who do you think Arno would work best well in the Assassin's franchise? Like, as a partner in crime, for example. Like, Batman and Robin. For me, I would say Altair, but I'm a bit strange like that.
I would say my first impulse was to say absolutely no one, because few people are willing to tolerate a smartass of Arno's caliber, and he does spend most of the game being an insufferable smartass. But
there is one person I can think of who might be able to match
Jacob
him.
Fry.
Yes,
Jacob Fry. It's perfect because you've got smartass and dumbass in equal measure, and at least in the main segments of both games, a thorough inability to think things through to the end. I mean, I know it would have to be an alternative universe setup because of the gap in years, but considering that they both, tend to cause explosions, laugh it off as, hey, didn't we have fun at work today? I think that would be the absolute disaster duo.
Okay, so we need a situation whereby these two characters can meet and it's non-canonical. Assassin's Creed Infinity, we are counting on you to make this happen as some kind of branching timeline that we as players can just enjoy these two wisecracking characters.
Just add that AU is alive and well in many other fan-created media, and the official name for that is French fries.
French fries.
Google with caution.
Right. I was going to say, do we need to Google with caution? Yeah. Understood. We're one risky click away. Got it.
I would like to add that technically we don't need Assassin's Creed Infinity. Technically, Arno doing it with Jacob is 100% canonical already.
Go on.
See, I've got these at 10.
Arno with a Zimmer frame.
No, this is kind of something I've been rolling around in my head for a few weeks now, and these are all going to call me stupid, and I know it, and it's fine. But the big
Arno would be 100 years old at the times of the events of Syndicate, but go on.
The final reveal of Valhalla with the Yggdrasil tree. It creates every simulation. So think about it.
Oh my god.
Think about it this. What if it's a simulation, right? And backwards, I know, where Cassandra gives up. She's sick of waiting. She's sick to die of watching all her friends die because she's immortal. So she meets Arno. wisecracking guy, and she gives him the staff. You know, you could do it. You seem you've got the mental capacity to do it. So he does it, and through the years, he just teams up with any assassins he can, and lo and
All I
behold,
see is
18.
disaster.
Exactly.
I think Steph's brain's just melted.
Disaster. But no, truly, that the ending of Valhalla with a quantum Yggdrasil definitely opens up all sorts of possibilities that were not formally canon. Um,
So just to go back to Declan's question of good duos for the sort of the laconic and lackadaisical Arno, are we not suggesting Connor then? Not quite a meshing of personalities.
one meeting that I would very much love to see, and is actually possible. Um, and I may be shooting my own foot in case I ever do something with it later on. But anyway, it'll be recorded now as my idea, so copyright protected.
Absolutely.
One person that I would dearly love Arno to meet is Avelin, because time permits it, and honestly, there are a few moments in the story, and especially in Dead Kings, where you just want to pick up Arno and slap him around the head a few times and say, I mean, although he finally does get to that point himself, this is what the world is like. Will you please stop whinging? Right? Um, and if there's a person who truly knows what the world is like and who's done it through much harder yards than any of the lads of 18th and 19th century in the Brotherhood, uh, it's Aveline Campret, because
I would always be up to seeing more
and
Aveline story.
and she would be his senior in both years and experience and knowledge of the world. Because I mean, let's be frank, Arno Victor Dorian has never held a day job. All right, getting out of grooming horses doesn't count, really. Whereas here you have an extraordinary woman who's gone through her life as a woman of color, running her own business, being an assassin, dealing with incredible family conflict from all sides, uh, going through the sequence of terrifying revelations, and keeping her cool. And someone like that would be perfectly placed to work with Arno, wring his ears, and give him the slap he so richly deserves. Sometimes, plus, considering that Evelyn is also a deadpan stand-up comedian, those would be interactions that I would love to see.
Poor Gerald, you never had a chance, my friend.
Oh,
What? How old? Do you know? I don't. I know it's. I can't remember. But what? When did the events of Liberation take place? Are they running concurrently with the events of AC3? Sort of
partially.
1770s. Yeah,
Partially because Evelyn
yeah.
and Connor do meet and work
They do.
together,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I think the lifetimes of everyone go of both Ratonageddon and Evelyn do overlap with Arno uh, within a few decades or something like that. But I'd have to double check the numbers.
Brilliant. So what we're saying is Arno is going to go to South America, and somehow he's going to cross paths with Aveline somewhere in South America, or Chichen Itza. Maybe they'll meet. Who knows? Sounds fantastic.
Oh, to be a
Go
fly on
write
that
the
wall.
story.
Okay, okay, I will.
Brilliant.
Pinky promise.
I'm going to move on to another point. So he writes very quickly his very first letter to his father. He writes about Elise as always getting him into trouble, and but having lots of fun with her. And we know that at some point they become lovers. They certainly are. It's kind of funny because I think it's in the novelization, and in the novelization it's written as though their kiss in Versailles that we see at the Templar initiation party is their first kiss. That ain't their first kiss. No way. They know what they're doing.
I
And
I
it's
would use a lovely British expression that I'm fond of. Pull the other one, it's got bells on.
Indeed, indeed, I like that expression. Yeah, and I wonder when their relationship changed, and whether it acted as an anchor for Arno, because when Elise went off to her school, the real name of which I can't remember, I only remember it as the Palais de la Misère. She writes about it in her journal. What was it really called? Maison something or other.
I don't even know if
Maison
it's
Mère.
a real one or if it was meant for the book, but those
I have it on good
finishings
authority that it was a real.
wouldn't be
I think it still stands.
wouldn't be
But anyway,
surprised.
yeah. I wonder if Elise acts as an anchor for him, or whether again that's another sort of isolating factor for him when she's sent off to school and he kind of hangs around the Delasere estate on his own, occasionally training. What do you think, Declan?
Sorry, I was just taking an inhaler. Sorry, I've got a cold.
Well, that's all right. We'll edit that out. Do you want me to go to serve while you catch up on your breathing?
Yeah, sorry, my cold's playing havoc with my asthma. Sorry, guys.
No worries. Serve. Take it away.
Well, I think it would have been pretty disastrous. I mean, we see in the game that Elise and Arno, as little kids, hit it off perfectly from the moment they meet, and uh, obviously, if you, I mean, I personally don't have that experience of a sibling, but it's quite common to have that one friend who brightens your life. Even like if you're having a bad time at school, there's this friend you hang out with, and when the holidays begin, you wait for them to return from their holiday so you could hang out again. And it's probably something that a lot of people can recognize from their own experience. So someone like that suddenly leaving, uh, I think that would have been pretty crushing for both of them, because what they obviously had is a very great amount of trust between the two. They uh, they trusted each other implicitly, which is why when they reached the point where they suddenly don't trust, or rather Elise stops trusting Arno because of the whirlpool that she ended up in, uh, you can see that that's a kick in the gut. So I think that obviously throughout his life, he always looked to her as that uh, promise of future happiness. She's not just, and I think that's why that relationship is truly, truly beautiful, because she's not just his lover, she's his friend. And
Yes.
their
Yes.
banter, their banter is always the banter between two people who know each other extremely well. They speak very forthrightly to each other. They don't preface, they don't hedge. Uh, you know, one thing that you often hear say, when you meet a friend, oh hi, how are you? When you meet a really good friend, whoa man, where the beep have you been? Beep. And they have exactly that relationship, that little digs and insults, just like when they're in that hedge labyrinth. Admit it, you're lost. Const-
Oh, I climbed up that tower and I looked and I looked. Could I find a way out? No, I could
yeah,
not.
I
And
know.
Elise is nagging me. And
Yeah,
all right, yes, I'm trying. I'm really
I'm trying.
trying. Trust me. I want to impress you.
Yes, exactly. But and I'm really glad you said that. I want to impress you. Uh, that's a beautiful thing. Is that nothing that Arno does? He doesn't do to impress her, and she doesn't expect to be impressed. They already know each other. So I think that, logically, the relationship that started in the childhood was was an incredible foundation for a relationship that they both expected to go on for a long, long time. And that's
It's some,
that's what
sorry.
makes it so painful, of course.
Yeah, I think it's something I'll just say, and I'm sure if people are subscribed to a podcast about Assassin's Creed, they're probably the kind of people that have already consumed a lot of the media. But if you haven't read the novelization, definitely read the novelization. And for one specific moment that's present in the game, and it's when Arno has escaped from the Bastille and he returns to the only space or the only place he knows in the whole of Paris where he hopes he can find some rest and succor and whatever, and that is the Delasere house. And he opens the door, and Elise pulls a gun on his face. And if you're not paying attention, or why would you? Because it's not explained in the game, which is frustrating. Elise has had a rough couple of months. Of course, she's mourning her own grief, but she has been attacked in her house, and she has had a sort of a mental decline. And I suppose the point I'm going to make to anyone who's listening is definitely read the novelization to fill in a lot of the gaps around their story between each other and their relationship with each other. And they are justified or she is justified to think pretty poorly of Arno, absolutely. But there are other influences as well. So definitely get the novelization if you haven't already. Declan, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, quick apology for disappearing, taking an inhaler.
I think we can allow it.
Having a cold and asthmatic is like the worst combination ever. It's weird.
And hosting a podcast where you have to talk a lot. Yeah, that's not good.
I'm fine. One thing I want to say is I've always been fascinated by Elise and Anna's relationship just because the start of the story is so unexpected. You know, Arnold's this new kid, he's nervous where he is, and he meets Elise and they go steal an apple. It's the most simplest childhood thing ever, but it is really emotional to watch and after you've played the whole game because they don't know each other. You know, he's trusting this random girl that stealing this apple would be a good idea. And I think he locked onto that memory. And I don't know if it's just something I saw personally, just from Arno's voice actors. I think they use motion cap as well for that. When she mentions that we can't be together because you're an assassin and I'm Templar, he looked distraught because he's already thrown in a basket that he doesn't belong. You know, he's just like, hey, what are you doing? You know, we've grown up together. You know, I snuck into a party for you, which I'm going to say hands down is one of my favourite missions in the entire franchise because
it's a great mission.
It is. It's so hilarious. You're breaking in, you meet Elise, and she's looking really nice in a dress, and he starts following her. It's like so cool. It's such a change of pace, and it sets up for the story. And for him just to get told, "Oh, you're an assassin, I'm a Templar. This can't work," it was a massive kick because I don't think Arno wanted to be in that basket. You know, I'm not an assassin. I'm just doing what's I think's right. You don't have to shun me for it.
I completely agree with what Declan said there because Arno is blissfully ignorant of the whole Great War going on around him. And one of my favorite Arno lines in the game is when Belek tells him that his father died for liberty of all mankind. Very epic, hugely important. And at that point, probably anyone who's come into the game having played the other games goes, "Yes, finally assassins!" And Arno replies with, "Well, I'm sure your little cult is a delightful bunch."
Oh, it's great.
He's
Yes.
absolutely not interested. You know, he trains with Belek. Maybe Belek fills him in on some things about his dad or anything like that. But on leaving Bastille in a very assassin way, by taking a leap of faith from Tower, his first thought isn't, "I'm going to go find Belek and find out what these assassins are all about." He rushes off to find Elise, and through the entire game, he doesn't hide the fact that his motivation for joining the assassins is literally to get the tools and to get the skills he needs, uh, not even to avenge his father uh, or to avenge Delasere, but because he feels he's several times failed to protect people he loves, that he doesn't want to be in that situation again. So Arno's motivations, kind of like Ezio's throughout most of AC2, have nothing to do with the Assassin Templar War. They're completely, I mean, obviously, politically, his heart is in the right place. He supports more rights for the people. He supports a peaceable revolution mm, when Persian assassins are sitting in their usual setup, which is with their heads up their asses. Uh, he uh, he says, people are asking for bread and liberté and égalité. Should we not be helping that? No, no, no. Shut up. Politics first. Uh, but his main motivation is actually completely selfish, and it remains selfish all the way to the end of to about halfway through Dead Kings, when he sees what Napoleon is up to, um, when he realizes that the game of the Isu artifacts is not over, and when he realizes that yes, he is actually, as an assassin, responsible for a bit more than, frankly, uh, just the benefit of himself and his girlfriend. But that takes place very, very late in the story.
Ooh, and then I lost my train of thought for a second. Lovely job of mine. I forget where I'm going.
Happens to me all the time.
So, Serv, you just kind of made me think of something interesting. I've always linked Arno to Altair with the way he treats the dog, similar to the ironies. But is it possible that Arno's character is actually all the assassins who came before him? Altair with the dogma, Ezio with that whole I need the skills to protect the ones I love, Connor because he does have that, well, what about the people, my Frenchmen, I've got to help them. Whereas the assassins, he said they're up their own arse and nah, let's do what we want first. And then Edward. Edward was totally against what the assassins did. He was a bit, I'm trying to get my little bit of gold, my little fame, and I'm not bothered what you're doing. And he even says in the prison cell when Balek's talking about the glyphs, he calls them silly drawings and he calls him mad for jumping off the prison. So it's as if Arno was created to be a resemblance of every assassin before. He's Altair with a philosophical thinking that the creed's broken, it's not perfect. Ezio's balance of doing stuff for the ones he loves. Connor's let's protect the people I love. Because I think if Arno was in charge, he probably would have done a lot more for the Parisians than the Brotherhood's done in his life, not to be rude. And Edward, who's just, let's get drunk and party, and I'll treat the assassins as my little ticket to fame.
You're going to annoy a lot of Black Flag fans with that short character summary.
I was going to say, you're lucky you've already had Wolfie on.
Indeed, indeed.
But
I do love Edward. I'm not going to die. Edward,
I know. I'm just
right,
pulling your leg.
Edward's one of my favorite. I love the idea that he's not an assassin. That he's literally like kill an assassin, blackmail Templars, steal a sage for no reason, and then at the end it's like, yeah, hold up. May join the assassins now. I think I'm in a bit more of a douche.
Yeah.
I agree with him.
Yeah, but it's not an unexpected thing, in a long running franchise. You are always going to have callbacks, or fans are going to see callbacks where there are none, or where there are some. I mean, we had this whole screaming in Valhalla over the London sequence, because everybody said, "Oh my God, this is AC1. This is uh, this is heavily based on AC1. Hytham's unfortunate attempt at air assassination actually literally was a callback to the cinematic opening of AC1. That's that's a given. That's word of gold
I'm
confirmed.
just going to step in here and say I have forgotten all of that. Do you want to give me a quick reminder, just for those listeners who might not have remembered all of these details? What's the callback in the London arc that connects to AC1?
Okay, at the risk of Valhalla spoilers and further tangents, the
We can do that.
the three main missions that make up the London arc in Valhalla have targets that are basically the same as three very recognizable targets in AC1. One is a crazed Templar dash Order of the Ancients doctor, which in AC1 is, God, I believe takes place in a hospital in Acre.
I think that's the second target, isn't
Where
it?
you kill, I believe
Yeah.
it's Montfort, and then there's the one of the hidden one of the Order of the Ancients targets that you chase down on boats in London Harbour, which most people will remember with great love and warmth, the assassination in Acre Harbour, aka who put this guy on the water? Do you know that I drown easily? And I can't remember the third one. but it also related directly to one of the missions in AC1. And at the very start of the game, when you finally face Kjotve, and Kjotve and Ava are having a hearty exchange of insults, Hytham, bless him, decides that this is the right time to strike, and it probably was. Leaps into the pit where the two are standing and gets suplexed by Kjotve and left in a crumpled little heap. Now, somebody pointed out, probably within 10 minutes of the game coming out, that the cinematics of that looked exactly like Altair's first air assassination in the AC1 cinematic. And to which W. McDavid responded, "We got the same director and tell him do the same thing again."
There,
So
Brilliant.
there is another callback. I may have mentioned it. There's an Order of Ancient member who's killing people on is it the executioner? He's like killing people in a crowd, and you can
yes,
walk
that's
through
the
the.
third one.
That's the
That's the
third one.
third one.
You walk through the crowd, and then you can assassinate him. Now, if you imagine doing a running jump air assassination, it mimics the E3 trailer for Assassin's Creed 1. Because I took a photo of me running on the Roman pillars at the top and then air assassinate it because I wanted to mirror an air assassination from AC1 because it was an AC1 mission. That's what it was. It wasn't a Valhalla mission, it was just AC1 mission. But that's my tangent over.
Well, I'm just going to say we're supposed to be doing an AC1 episode soon, and I think my memory's got many holes in it, and I need to go and do some research before we do that episode.
I'm playing AC1 now. I'm loving it. Altair is amazing. It's why I think I keep linking Arno to Altair because I keep seeing a lot
I
of.
think we need to explore this. You've said Altair is amazing, and Serv is giving us a thumbs down.
I know Altair.
Let's explore this.
I want to explore this because I'm not biased. I do put all assassins on the same pedestal as all amazing and all joint my favourites. But I do love Altair's descent from selfishness to philosophical that the creed is broken. Maybe I was a bit of a dick to start with.
Yeah, I'm not gonna go onto my Altair rant in an Arno theme podcast, but hit me up anytime. And no, I was joking. I was joking with the thumbs down. I think it was one of the probably one of the best character arcs in the games that. Sorry about this. I'm just gonna give it a moment for this plane to call. Yeah, I'm sorry. Apparently, someone's digging up the street. How bad is it? You're muted.
We can't hear anything, so we can edit out the long silence, and it'll be an
Okay,
amazing
good.
show. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, I can hear you just fine. Yeah,
Cool.
I'm not. So. No, it's an amazing character arc, and I must say, for me, the moment where I really started appreciating Altair was in AC2 when I read the Codex, and then I thought, this man is amazing. This man is thoughtful. We already know that he is lethal. So I must say, no, that's definitely something which actually makes me wonder. Um, yeah, considering that Belek was all about, glory days of Altair, glory days of Monteriggioni, and whatnot. Um, uh, on the other hand, Belek's never struck me as a very bookish type. He's very much a hands-on guy. I mean, he even goes as far to say, before Altair, you go and sacrifice your life and so on. To which Arno is quite unimpressed. Did Belek ever bother to show Arno the Codex? And
I'm guessing it was more practical training, as you
I'm yeah,
say,
I'm
rather
kind of
than
I'm kind of
study these
figuring
books and call me back.
the philosophy of the creed. So either Prophet's Codex or Altair's Codex wouldn't have figured largely, but I will uh, and I think I can actually twine this tangent back in on itself. What what it means to be an assassin, especially since James pointing out that I've been ranting for a while now. Um, that's to me that to me was probably uh, the moment where I really, really got goosebumps in Unity, even though I hadn't played any of the other games before, is in Dead Kings, when Arno finally agrees to see the whole thing through, to help out the kid, to see through the whole mystery of Saint Denis and why Napoleon is poking about in there. Um, he jumps down one of the many, many, many holes in the area, and the little boy calls out from the top, uh, "But what about Le Capitaine, the thuggish captain who's running the entire operation?" And Anna responds with, "He shall fall, for I am an assassin." And in that moment, I think to me that's the moment that bridged that frankly confusing gap between the end of the game and Arno, the master assassin's speech about the creed. That moment when he realizes that being an assassin is a responsibility. And, Rich is that I am an assassin and I am taking this guy out because my job is to clean up the world. And that's the moment at which, it makes me wonder even more how the story went on from there, because it's heavily implied that he's sort of made peace with his identity as an assassin.
Declan, I think that is a great point to end the show. I don't think we could have done better ourselves.
I've been doing this show for 2 years. I don't think I've ended it as cool as that. I won't lie.
Yeah.
But
so at this point, I resign. Serv, welcome to the show. You can take over our jobs.
No, I talk altogether too much. I'd start a question and then the question would dissolve into an impassioned speech. I think you two are doing a wonderful job as is.
That's pretty much what we do. That's very kind, thank you. But it's kind of funny. I have noticed, Declan, that since I've joined, the episodes are getting longer. Have you noticed? Quite considerably longer. Maybe that's unavoidable, but it's quite funny.
I would like to add that I did a survey a few months ago. Well, no, 6 months ago. And one of my highly recommended features was a co-host. So I'm thinking people didn't want 20-minute episodes. They wanted long episodes. So I had to drag somebody on board. And you were the only one who's willing. So
Fair enough. We'll go with that.
So is this all we've got time for tonight then? Which
I think it is. I mean, I had a page, well, no, actually 2 pages full of notes and bullet points and thoughts. And do you know what? I think we've had a pretty good discussion about the life of poor, tragic, but ultimately has a nice ending, as you said, Serv, in Dead Kings, Arno Victor Dorian.
You forgot adorable.
I did forget adorable. Yes, he's a good-looking chap. I'm going to be honest with you.
So sadly, this is what I've got time for today, and I'm really enjoying these Unity lookbacks because I might actually have to apply this to more games in the future. So if you guys are really interested in seeing more lookbacks where we can pick apart characters or storylines, even if it's just a side character, maybe the merchant we rescue from Black Flag and his descent from a simple merchant to joining Blackbeard. We gotta talk about him, he's clever.
Are we talking about my favourite NPC, apart from Elise? Steed Bonnet.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, I love Steed Bonnet. He's basically he's a slightly overweight middle class Brit. I'm basically his spirit animal, or he's my spirit animal, or whatever. I've never been interested in cosplay. I'm not tall or slim enough to rock Arno's robes, but I could do a great Steed Bonnet cosplay. We have gone way off topic, and you were trying to wrap up the show professionally, so I'm just going to shut up. Declan,
Well,
close the show.
That is exactly what I want to do in the future, people. We did the Fantastic Deep Dives for 11 weeks, which was all 11 series, and it's a series we're going to keep doing. But I don't think we should stop looking at look back. So if you would like to see more reflections, as these are now being titled, please send your thoughts through Twitter at AC Let's Talk, or through James's Twitter at James Tiddlyquid. You can also email me ideas at assassinscreed.let's talk@gmail.com. Suddenly forgot my email then, which is kind of weird. Thank you both for joining, and hopefully we can grab you on board because I see chatter about Malik Al Sayef. So, if we ever do an Assassin's Creed revisit, we may have to revisit Malik.
I'm thinking
Ponder.
we were talking of doing an AC1. What's it like to play in 2021? Which we're planning for maybe next month or the month after. I think we should do a little trilogy again. We could do AC1, Altair, and Malik. Why not?
I think we should, and if we do, we may have to think long and hard who we could do for Malik. But I think it'd be pretty hard to find a guest that's
I don't
really
know anyone
interested.
that's really interested. No, no, me neither.
Oh, it'd be a
Shame,
hard
isn't it?
one, but we may find a very interesting guest. So thank you all for coming, and hopefully we'll see you all next week.